On this side of the law, on that side of the law, who is right?
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Law Talk. It's the fastest growing, podcast, where your questions or your answers to legal questions are made available by attorneys who have been around the block once or twice. I'm Mark the Attorney Judson.
Jonathan, Law Dawg, Fontenot.
And from the courthouses of Calcasieu
To the marshes of Cameron Parish.
this is Law Talk, bringing you practical answers to common questions. What's today's topic there, Law Dawg?
Pay on death accounts.
What's a pay on death account?
I'm confused. Okay, so if I have an account, a bank account, and it says, on my death, leave it to my neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
But my will says, I want all my property to go to my kid.
Well, no.
So, who gets the account?
Great question. Comes up all the time. Pay on death accounts, sometimes called transfer on death accounts. Many states will give banks and depositors the authority to bypass the will and inheritance and probate process and simply say, on my death, I want all the money in this bank account to go to my son.
That could be an insurance policy.
My wife. Yeah, just like a beneficiary on a life insurance policy. In Louisiana, at this point in time, in the year 2026, when this broadcast is being made, this podcast is being made, we have transfer on death accounts on the law books. However, they only pertain to banking institutions. Now you're going to ask,
As opposed to what?
as opposed to applying to everybody. Your next question is, what do you mean by that?
What do you mean by that?
I'm glad you asked. So a pay on death account will say, on my death, I want my checking account to go to Bob, okay? And the bank will say, okay, he signed when he opened the checking account that on his death, he wanted the checking account to go to Bob. The bank will then transfer all the money in the checking account to Bob, all right? The bank is off the hook. It can Pontius Pilate brush its hands with the question, and the bank is completely relieved of liability.
But Bob's not.
Yeah. But if I had a will, or I had heirs, or I had no will, and all my assets were to be divided among people other than Bob, then the pay on death account exposes Bob to having to give the money to the heirs.
But Bob's responsible for that one.
Well, perhaps. It just depends. Bob probably has done nothing wrong, but Bob needs to understand that a mere pay on death designation under Louisiana law does not transfer ownership. The only way we can transfer ownership from the dead to the dead's heirs is a Louisiana term called donation mortis causa, right? It can only be done by the succession process. It can only be done by a will, donation mortis causa, only by a will. Or if there is no will, it can only be done by the intestate succession process. So a pay on death account in Louisiana in the year 2026 does not transfer ownership of the funds. It simply allows the bank to give the money to the person who is designated, and it relieves the bank of liability. It's a law that was passed by bankers for bankers.
But you can still go after Bob if he's not a rightful heir.
So let's say that there's $100,000 in the bank account, all right? Bob's not an heir. He's not named in the will. I am an heir, and I am named in the will. And I'm to get everything that the decedent owned. Well, the decedent owned $100,000 in a bank account. I should have gotten that money. But Bob's got the money because the bank transferred it to Bob.
Right?
So my only recourse is to sue Bob for the money.
And the new legislation means you can't go after the bank.
Well,
They're sitting there off the hook.
right. The current legislation, the current pay on death
You
legislation.
can't go after Bob.
The bank is completely relieved of liability. I can go after Bob. Now, fair warning, this issue is before the Louisiana legislature, is expected to be heard before the Louisiana legislature. We may get a new law on this in the year 2026 or 2027. But right now, in early 2026, when this podcast is being shot, a transfer on death account or pay on death account does not automatically transfer ownership of the funds to the recipient. That's the big deal. That's what you got to understand. If you are the recipient of a pay on death account, you are not necessarily the owner. You are exposed to being sued by the true owners You need to consult a lawyer. The true owners are definitely going to consult a lawyer, and they're going to have to decide if it's worthwhile to sue the transferee.
Possible scenario. $100,000 goes to Bob. You ask him for it, sue him for it. He says, I spent it on wild living and whiskey. And he owns nothing else. You can't go after the bank, and Bob is judgment proof. Can that happen?
Yes.
Okay.
And that's the end of the answer. There's not much you can do about it. So if you are a legatee or an heir, you need to be aware of what the decedent owned at the time of death. You need to see if there are any pay-on-death accounts. You need to see if they've been distributed. You need to be vigilant because we don't want Bob to go spend the money on wine, women, and song and have it all gone before you figure out that you may have been entitled to some money. Pay-on-death accounts, they're tricky. Be aware of them. Look into them.
I think we know the Bob we're talking about.
If your name happens to be Bob, he could or could not be you that we're speaking of. Beware of the transfer on death accounts. That's the moral of this story. I'm Mark, the attorney Judson.
Jonathan, Law Dawg, $5.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back. If you want more answers to questions, go to the website at the bottom of the screen and check us out. Tune in next time for Law Talk.